Hello again, plane enthusiasts. It is I, the idiot from this video. I've made it to top tier in the air tree, and boy do I have some thoughts on 9.0 to 14.0. It is important to give some context here. So that leaves me in the German air tree playing solely Air RB. Sorry arcade and sim players, this is not your video. I play Air RB to have good dogfights and PvP with other people. Base bombing on repeat is used as a last resort. At my best, I'm an above average player. And at my worst, I'm free RP and SL for anyone in the lobby, including my teammates. There are a lot of things that I'm going to discuss in this video that I am nowhere near qualified to discuss. However, I will try my best to give context to viewers who may not be at this BR bracket and have no idea what cranking is. There will be some bad information, and that is due to me being stupid, and so take those parts with a lot of salt. A warehouse full of salt, even. This video will be about my journey from 9.0 to 14.0, and the horrors that I encountered along the way, as each jump in the tiers bring newer and scarier ways to kill and get killed. When I started this grind, the Swiss part of the German tree did not exist. I didn't have to grind those, so I just kinda speed ran the East and West Germany fighter lines. With all of that out of the way, let's begin.
That's what I'm talking about! That's why he's the MVP! That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
Starting this journey off with the CL-13B Mark VI, this vehicle is the greatest of all time, at 9.0. This Canadian-made Sabre has some unique changes to it. Its wings were changed to improve maneuverability, and later versions were equipped with the Avro Canada Orenda engines, which performed better than their original General Electric J47 engines. The difference between the Mark V and the Mark VI in-game is very noticeable. The Mark V isn't as fast, and doesn't get AIM-9Bs, which we will cover later. If you're in this BR bracket for Germany, I highly recommend, no, I implore you, to pick up this plane. Do not pass it because it is a folded plane. Anyways, the Mark VI's biggest threats are any afterburning aircraft that can outclimb and boom and zoom the Mark VI. But, if you can bait them into a dogfight, it's a guaranteed win unless they disengage. The Mark VI is a great dogfighter, but should still avoid getting into the furball too early, as it's very easy to get third-partied by aircraft that like to be fast and above you. A quick brief on what boom and zooming is. Boom and zooming is the idea in which you are at a higher energy state compared to your target. This can be both kinetic and potential energy. Just be faster or potentially faster, that's all that matters. Line yourself up for an attack run, and use your higher energy state to perform a quick strafe on your target. This is the boom part. To perform the zoom part, you just need to create distance between you and your target after booming. This could be achieved in many ways, but commonly, it could be as simple as leveling out your aircraft after a dive, and retaining as much speed as possible. All that matters here is that if you fail to destroy your target, that you're not going to create an opportunity for them to return fire. Speaking of afterburning aircraft, this boat of a plane, let's think back to 15 seconds ago when I was talking about the Mark VI and what makes it a great aircraft. Its high maneuverability and strong engine. Then let's look at the F-86K. Low maneuverability and an afterburning engine. The Mark VI is a great dogfighter, and the F-86 isn't even competitive. Now this left me scratching my head as to why I would use this plane over the Mark VI. While I was grinding, I didn't even fly this plane enough to research all of its modules. That's how much I hated the jump between these planes. Spending 5 minutes on Google, I learned that this plane was conceptualized as an interceptor. Which makes sense, as bombers at the time were very fast, and the ones that weren't, well, rocket interceptor goes zoom or something. Anyways, in-game, this thing sucks at dogfighting, but it makes up for it with its strong boom and zooming and ground striking. The 20mm have a lot of ammo, and you can destroy a lot of ground AI with it. Comparing the F-86K to the MiG-19, I'd say the MiG-19 in War Thunder would be the better interceptor and boom and zoomer. In real life, I'm not sure how each plane performed in these roles, so don't come at me, because I don't know. Visiting this plane after learning more about the game has made me appreciate it a little more. In one of my games I just played to get some more footage for this, I got into a dogfight with a MiG-19. If I was a better player, I could have destroyed the MiG-19 twice in this dogfight. Fun fact about this thing, its search radar has a setting for 370 kilometers, which has 0 use cases in the game. The radar itself is useful in endgame scenarios where you don't know where the last few players are.
Tylko jedno w głowie mam, koksu 5 gram, odlecieć sam w krainę zapomnienia.
Alright, enough about this boat. Let's talk about the East German side. Some context is needed here. I power leveled through the West German side to get to the F4F as fast as possible, and I didn't touch the East German side until I got to the MiG-23. So expect a lot of skill issues when I talk about these planes. The LIM-5P is a licensed, Polish-built MiG-17 according to the War Thunder wiki. Looks into the camera. Anyways, it has an afterburner, and its roll rate really hurts my soul. Especially if you're coming from the Mark VI where you can roll to your heart's content. It also suffers from the crackhead weapon design of the MiG series, where they slapped on 3 27mm cannons on the bottom of the nose. Anytime I fly a MiG, I forget to turn on vertical targeting, and miss all of my shots. Please, Gaijin, let us have custom settings for these planes. The guns also have less ammo compared to their NATO counterparts, and I tend to run out often. Slow muzzle velocity compared to 50 cals, and I find myself struggling a lot. It does have a search radar, but again, is only useful in endgame scenarios. A very solid plane, I personally didn't give a lot of love. Take all of the things about the LIM-5P and make them better. This is what I think the MiG-19 is. Being the first supersonic Soviet plane, it is a blast to fly. Its energy retention is nuts. The only thing I have to fault is its low ammo count, and again, the crackhead MiG gun design. But this time, they put 2 on the wings because they hate consistency. These guns are also 30mm compared to the previous 23mm and 37mm because again, they hate consistency. The new event vehicle, the F-106, does cause some headaches for the MiG-19. But I'm sure, with time, these event vehicles will start to disappear. Other than those 2 planes over there, I don't have much else to talk about at this tier. It's a fun tier with great dogfights between MiGs and Sabres. There's some early missiles like the AIM-9B, but you can usually just roll away from them. Even the radar-guided AIM-7s aren't too much of a threat. More on missiles later. If I was to rate this tier, I would give it a solid 8 out of 10. Even going as far as saying that this is the best BR bracket in the game. There isn't too much for me to rip my hair out over besides the 104s being annoying, and all of the aircraft are unique and fun in their own ways, not including strike aircraft and bombers. With such a nice tier to come from, surely they'll be continuing the trend upwards with... Fuck. This aircraft was annoying in the last tier. Now I get an over-tiered version that sucks at its BR bracket. The F-104G has access to AIM-9Js, which are my favorite of the AIM-9 missiles. More on missiles later. Since it has access to these missiles, it bumps its BR to 11.0, where almost every jet can catch the 104 unless it's flying in a straight line. For those who don't know, the F-104 put all of its stats into speed and firepower. It is facing aircraft that can almost match it in speed. If a MiG-23 even sniffs an F-104, it's game. Especially if it's carrying R-23 or R-24s. I exclusively used this plane for base bombing. Anytime I tried to boom and zoom or fight with the aircraft, I wanted to smash my balls into a waffle iron. One thing it is good at is bombing a base and shoving an AIM-9J up an unaware enemy's nozzle. I also don't enjoy the boom and zoom gameplay loop, so this contributes to why I may not like flying this aircraft too much. According to the wiki, looks into the camera, even the real-life variant wanted to kill the pilot. I hate this thing so much that I don't even know why we interrupt this rant to present the newest death machine created by man, the missile. There are 2 types of missiles that you need to worry about, Fox 1s and Fox 2s. Fox 1 missiles are guided to their target by the plane's radar. These missiles are not susceptible to flares. The plane that launched the Fox 1 missile must maintain its radar lock until the missile has reached its target. If the plane loses lock due to terrain or relocks onto defensive countermeasures like chaff, the missile will miss its target. If the plane that has been locked onto has a radar warning receiver, or RWR, it will, in most cases, know that a radar has locked onto it. Some RWRs are even capable of detecting a missile launch. Fox 2 missiles are infrared homing, also known as IR. These missiles, as the name implies, use infrared wavelengths that are radiated from heat sources, like the afterburner of an aircraft, or even the aircraft itself. These missiles are susceptible to other heat sources though, like flares or the sun. One last thing about missiles before we go. Early missiles like the AIM-9B have just 10 Gs of pull. Oftentimes, an opponent can just roll away from the missile. Later missiles can get up to 30 Gs of pull, like the R-60 MKs. We now return you to your regularly scheduled program. I would rather them folder this piece of shit aircraft behind the F4F, because at least it will be competitive and you can just skip it. You can just go straight to the F4F where you can actually do something in the game besides base bombing. What was I ranting about? Oh right, the only good thing about this plane is that it has access to the AIM-9Js, and that is because it has a smaller seeker cone, which acts as like an early version of IRCCM. The bomb guidance computer is nice as well, I guess. It's also incredibly annoying to slower aircraft like A-10s and F-5Cs, so you can be the annoying guy from the previous tier, just with way deadlier missiles. This aircraft is a boat. However, this boat has a very impressive and versatile payload, ranging from 10,000 pounds of bombs to 3 20mm autocannons that just spit out so much lead it would make a bald eagle cry in the name of freedom, Mighty Mouse rockets to air-to-ground missiles. This airframe has it all. With all of that variety, it does lack one thing that is definitive to the Phantom IIs. It has no Fox 1 missiles. There are no AIM-7 Sparrows available for this aircraft, which is insane because besides it being a boat, this plane has everything. Insane payloads, great thrust, fantastic radar and RWR, but there's no Fox 1s, so the radar is just a glorified search radar. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the only Phantom in the game that doesn't get AIM-7s. What? According to the wiki, it lost its ability to launch AIM-7 Sparrows in an attempt to reduce cost. Now, I'm not a historian or a military expert, but that's a very important part on why the Phantom platform works. Anyways, I had a lot of fun with the F4F, even without the AIM-7s, because anything is better than the cock and ball torture that was the F-104. There was a lot to learn when using this plane, from radar systems to new hotkeys to AGMs, how to effectively use it in an ARB setting. Believe it or not, this aircraft can hold its own against MiG-21s and other platforms, but its window of opportunity tends to only happen once per fight, so good luck, don't miss. My go-to tactic was to fly towards the sides of the map and bomb AI targets in pretty much a straight line, since this plane cannot reliably race other airframes to the bases. While doing this, I will also look for anyone who's gotten into a fight early and shove an AIM-9J up their nozzle. It is important to do this while maintaining as much airspeed as possible, because as soon as the Phantom, especially when the furball is starting to form, if it gets into a low-speed dogfight, it's just gonna get shit on. This is also the time that I learned about defeating Fox 1 missiles. From multipathing to notching, you know what, just play the clip. To defeat Fox 1 missiles, you must do more than spamming the countermeasures button. Fox 1 missiles aren't the system you need to fool. It's the plane's radar that you need to fool. Since the plane needs to maintain a radar lock for the missile to guide to you, you can use chaff to blind or disrupt the radar system. Sometimes you will need to chaff dump to effectively disrupt the radar. Be aware that newer radars like those found on the Phantom IIs use pulse Doppler radars. These radars use the Doppler effect to determine the target's velocity, and are not susceptible to chaff in the aforementioned sense. When these are encountered, you must use notching. Notching is achieved by turning your aircraft almost perpendicular to the radar. The goal is to change your aircraft's airspeed to match the velocity gate of the pulse Doppler radar and blend in with the terrain. Pulse Dopplers filter out the relative speed of the ground and will create a velocity gate to prevent ground clutter. Finding this window and deploying chaff is your best way of defeating an incoming Fox 1 missile. The last technique is called multipathing. This happens when a radar locks a target over terrain which reflects a mirror image radar return. In a simpler sense, fly 50 meters from the ground and the missile will smash into the mirror image. This works well against older missiles and radars. Remember, if the terrain is bumpy or hilly, that multipathing may not be your best option. Turning on the radio altimeter, or RAlt, in the settings will help you find your altitude from the ground. The MiG-21s are a fan favorite for most people as their flight performance and dogfights are much better than their NATO counterparts, the Phantom IIs. However, the missiles equipped on the 21s and their radars leave a lot to be desired. There are two 21s available in the East German tree. Personally, I never liked flying them. Alright, listen. The Fox 1 missiles, R3Rs, can only pull 10 Gs. And, that's pretty standard for this tier, this era. But the radar on the 21s are ridiculously susceptible to chaff. Any kind of longer range shots, around 6 to 8 kilometers away, are just defeated because they could just start chaff dumping and the radar's like, oh my god, shiny. The Fox 2's R3Ss are caged seekers. This hurts my soul. But the MiG-21 SAU gets access to the R-60MKs, so it's really not the end of the world. This plane will rip itself apart in a level flight with full afterburner. The plane bleeds a lot of speed when maneuvering, and this is due to its delta wing design. After coming back and playing a few matches with the MiG-21s, I've grown to like them more. I definitely prefer the 10.3 MiG-21 MF version over the 11.0 SAU. That's just because the matchmaker favors more dogfighting and less missiles, and it's totally not because it shits on F-106s and F-8s. Getting a little bit of deja vu from the LEM 5P, the MiG-21s are very solid planes. I personally didn't give them a lot of love, and I will be coming back and playing them more often now that my grind for the German tree is done. What if we took the MiG-21, added variable geometry wings, upgraded its radar, gave it radar-guided munitions, and gave it a IR search and track mode, and then continued to put the gun in the worst possible place? You have a MiG-23. With upgrades to the radar and increased payload, the MiG-23 slides in very well with everything that I praised the Phantom IIs for. However, the MiG-23 has access to the R-24R missile. Now, what's so special about the R-24R? It is the first missile with Beyond Visual Range, or BVR, capabilities in the German tree, and it's damn good at it too. I've destroyed players up to 30 kilometers away with these oversized light poles. And yes, the target was oblivious and he didn't do any defensive maneuvers, but it puts into perspective that this missile is capable of some stuff. This plane is one of my favorites, and it's just because of the R-24Rs. Even when I'm not using it in a BVR sense, just flying low, this thing will annihilate anyone who dares to fly above 100 meters. My favorite way to play this plane is going high and having BVR fights with other MiG-23s and Phantom IIs. It's always fun getting into a technical fight with someone who knows how to defeat the MiG-23's awful radar and closing the distance until we can get into a dogfight. It's just mwah. But the MiG-23 does have some drawbacks. The radar is still awful, and it loves being blinded by chaff. The gun sits on the belly and it sucks to aim, and the MiG-23 isn't very maneuverable at times. It really prefers to boom and zoom rather than to dogfight. Its BR sits at 11.7, and in up tiers, you'll encounter things like Tomcats, F-16As, Hornets, and MiG-29s. Now, there's only 3 in a game whenever an up tier happens, but whenever these next generation fighters show up, it's a no fun zone for the MiG-23. However, In a down tier, the MiG-23 is a menace. The only thing that can stop the MiG-23 is a MiG-23. I still find myself going back to play this jet. Even when I was grinding for the Eurofighter and getting upset and trying to use the ice, I would go back to the MiG-23 because it was just that fun to play. I even bought the Soviet Premium, the MiG-23 ML, and I couldn't recommend flying this plane enough to you. Beyond visual range combat will change the way that you approach air battles. This new way of warfare allows jets to fire missiles from farther away and with great accuracy. There are 3 missiles at this tier that you should be wary of. The American AIM-7F Sparrows, AIM-54 Phoenixes, and the Soviets R-24s and R-27s. AIM-7s and R-24s/27s operate similarly. Both missiles can be fired from great distances, 10 to 40 kilometers away. Both missiles are Fox 1s and require the radar to stay locked onto the target until the missile has reached its target. However, the R-24s and 27s have additional guidance systems called In-Ordnance Guidance, or IOG. If the radar lock was to be broken while the R-24 or 27s are tracking their target, the missile will try to predict the flight path of the last known target and will correct itself to where the target would be if the lock was maintained. The missile itself cannot see the target and is inferring where the target would be. This works if the target fails to change its course after the lock has been broken. When fighting targets using BVR tactics, in a fair fight, with the same airframe, at the same speed, and the same missile, mutually assured destruction is inevitable, as both missiles would hit each target at the same time. What do you do to not die? You crank. Let's take the previous example. Both planes fire their Fox 1s at the same time, traveling at the same airspeed. However, one plane turns to the maximum amount it can to one side while still maintaining its radar lock. How much this plane can turn is dependent on the radar's gimbal limit. Doing this makes the hostile missile travel a longer distance to reach this plane. The missile may destroy the plane, breaking the radar lock on the cranking plane. The plane that is cranking is not safe because of IOG, and needs to change its course enough to avoid the guidance prediction of the missile, or if the plane was not destroyed and maintains its radar lock. Being close to the notch window allows you to enter a notch and deploy countermeasures to defeat the missile. Remember, change your elevation in case of IOG. This is one of many ways that fights utilizing BVR tactics can play out. Unfortunately, we do not have enough time to cover any other tactic. We hope you find this information useful and safe flying out there. Hey, remember that Vietnam-era Phantom II? Let's give it Fox 3s and make it up tier into Eurofighters, Late Hornets, Rafales, and Su-30s. Wouldn't that be a funny joke?
I was acting. Or was I?
The F-4 ICE, the Luftwaffe's solution to modernize their aircraft while they wait for the Eurofighter Typhoon to be created. This Phantom has been forced out of its retirement and slapped with a new radar, AIM-120 AMRAAM missiles, and a new gray paint job. This aircraft stands almost zero chance against any aircraft at its tier, going against MiG-29s, Su-27s, F-16s, F-15, JAS-39s, and so on. Its only hope is to try and stay way far away from everyone and use BVR and Datalink to catch people being dumb. It's trying its best impression of a Tomcat, and normally it's just getting its target stolen by all of the other jets that do that much better than it can. If the ICE ever thinks about going near the center of the map, it's going to get dogpiled by everyone because of how much of a free kill this thing is. Its top speed is slow, its acceleration is slow when it's carrying a payload. The safest place for the ICE to be is 40 kilometers away, near its airfield, at all times. Playing this plane is only fun because it's bad. I didn't even take any notes for this plane, and I flew 43 games with it and got 28 air kills, quote unquote. And I'm fairly certain that half of those, or more than half of those, are just the AI planes flying around. So on average, the KD was probably like 0.33 for me. It's somehow the 16th most flown aircraft on my roster. Maybe I really do like the waffle iron. The American military-industrial complex proudly presents you with the scariest missile for air combat, the Fox 3. Similar to Fox 1s, these missiles require a radar lock to launch and track. The twist with these missiles is once they've closed enough distance to their target, they will go pit bull, and can guide themselves to the target without needing the aircraft's radar lock. This allows the aircraft that launched the missile to go defensive or disengage entirely. An aircraft equipped with a radar that has Datalink capabilities can launch multiple missiles at multiple targets within the radar's cone, using the Track While Scan function, or TWS, to track all of the desired targets and guide the missiles until they go pitbull. Aircraft like the F-14 Tomcat, equipped with their AIM-54C Phoenix missiles and Datalink up to 6 targets, are best for this tactic.
It was perfect. Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
The MiG-29 is the first 4th-generation fighter for the German tree, and man do I love flying this plane. This plane is fast on the deck and incredibly maneuverable. Equipped with the powerful R-27ERs and the stupid but crackhead R-60 MKs, it is both capable of taking the fight up to the stratosphere and fighting on the deck. It also has IR search and track mode, which is very useful for sneaking up on people. It also gets a Cobra button for the funny ha-has. There are a lot of upsides to this plane, but it does have some problems. One of which is the R-60s love chasing any heat source that isn't the thing you launched it at. These missiles love tracking a cigarette that was lit 4 kilometers away, rather than the afterburner that the plane shot it at. With how realistic battles are formatted in War Thunder, it can only carry 2 R-27ERs and 4 R-60 MKs. In up tiers, it encounters airframes that can carry 6 AIM-120As or 8 AIM-120As in a full up tier. For the Russian boys, they can have up to 6 R-27ERs. So why is that a problem for the MiG-29? Going back to how I said it's capable of taking the fight up to the stratosphere, that's only true when this plane is at its tier or in a down tier. Let's ignore a 16v16 or 12v12 setting and just focus on a 1v1. In a high altitude fight, where both planes are at BVR range, the MiG-29 has 2 Fox 1 missiles, while an F-15C, which is a full up tier, it is worst case scenario, could carry up to 6 Fox 3 missiles. The MiG-29 has 60 countermeasures, and this is including both flares and chaff, while the F-15C has 240 countermeasures, including flares and chaff. Since the F-15C has Fox 3s and more countermeasures, it can sit up top and sling Fox 3 missiles at the MiG-29 and dodge the MiG-29's R-27s pretty easily, while still reliably being on the offensive because it has Fox 3s. There's no chance for the MiG-29 in this scenario unless the F-15 pilot just doesn't go defensive at all and just eats it to the face. This is the 1v1 scenario. Going back to how War Thunder realistic battles are structured, in a 12v12, there are, I think it's 3 up tiers in a game, and that would be, 3 possible F-15Cs on both teams. Now, that's a death trap for a MiG-29 that goes high, because it just doesn't have enough countermeasures to deal with the early game BVR mess. In up-tier games, I stay low and abuse the MiG-29's high speeds on the deck, and skirt around and try to sneak up on people. I normally will disable my radar, and just use the IRST mode to try and get some sneaky R60 kills on some people who aren't paying attention. In a down tier, the MiG-29 curb stomps MiG-23s and Seal clubs Phantom IIs that dare to have a 12.0 battle rating. Unfortunately, the MiG-29 has a very feast or famine BR bracket, and it's kind of just dependent on who's playing right now, and if you're just going to get up-tiered repeatedly or down-tiered repeatedly. In the hands of a skilled pilot, the MiG-29 can go toe-to-toe in an up-tier against F-15Cs and F-16s and stuff like that, but that pilot's not me. Here we are, top-tier Germany, the Eurofighter 2000. It gets no chaff, no G-suit, and playing this stock is way worse than playing any of the other planes that I've been complaining about. I might as well just run into mountains for fun. Using the multipath at top tier isn't as reliable because the missiles tend to come from above They splash near the ground, they have higher explosive payloads, and they will still severely damage and or outright kill the plane that is multipathing. So you have to do a little snake maneuver to try and get the missile to hit not underneath you, but also not hit you. However, it's top tier, and everyone is using BVR and Datalink. So there's not just one, not just two, but 3 to 6 missiles looking to try and splash your chaffless ass at the start of every single game that doesn't have terrain that you can hide behind. Almost every game I played at this tier is just the Tomcat BVR mess from the last tier and dialed up all the way to 10. There are murder pools flying everywhere from both sides, and usually the games end up with one guy getting 4 kills within the first 2 minutes, one team just disintegrating until all that's left is 3 to 6 players who chose to multipath rather than BVR. Those 3 to 6 players are up against the entire enemy team, because for some reason, when one side wins a BVR fight, everyone survives on that team. The jump from 12.7 to 14.3 is such an extreme jump, it feels like I am playing an entirely different game. More Fox 3s, Fox 2s have IRCCMs, which require new tactics like dropping a curtain, cutting afterburner, changing directions, trying to get out of the seeker cone, and pretty much everyone has the same capabilities with their aircraft, with some having just less hard points. The maps are tiny, and the games are over within 2 to 5 minutes. The few 1v1s that I usually end up in is whoever can get their Fox 2s to hit on target first, or you just end up getting into a dogfight, the airspeed of both aircraft slow down, and then you just get third-partied. Instantly. Always. This place feels like hell, and I willingly came here. I'm trying my best to understand the crazy skill curve, but it's such a steep curve that I don't really know if it's worth climbing after going through the crazy grind that was just getting the Eurofighter. Speaking of which, let's talk about that. I started the grind to top tier on April 5th, give or take. I started with the CL-13B, and gunned it down the left-hand side of the tree. I have a premium account, but I did not purchase a German premium because I wanted to fly the planes that I got. I finished researching the Eurofighter on July 31st. Now I can already tell people in the comments are going to be like, how did it take you nearly 5 months to get from tier 6 to tier 8? I did it with my free-to-play account, and only my big toe in 2 months. Listen, bud. Unfortunately, I have a job that takes a lot of time away from my week. I also just don't game as hard as I used to. I can't make 16-hour gaming sessions anymore. I also just get bored with War Thunder every once in a while, and I'll just stop playing for a few days at a time. Enough about the time it took. Let's talk about the grind itself. It is a fun experience, getting a new plane, figuring out what it's capable of, and all the new gadgets and gizmos it has. It's incredibly defeating to learn that the plane that I just got is dog shit. The other side of this coin is when I get a plane that I love flying, like the F4F, the MiG-23, the MiG-29. When I fly these planes, it doesn't feel like a grind because I'm having fun with them, and that they're viable in an air RB setting. One thing I wish would happen, which I know it will never happen because the snail hates us, is that the not fun planes to fly get foldered, like the F-104G, the F-4 Ice, the F-84 Thunderstreak. And I know I didn't talk about the Thunderstreak, but I'd have an aneurysm if I did. Doing this would allow some meme vehicles or just outright bad vehicles to be passed if you don't want them. Again, this will never happen because the snail wants us to suffer so that we buy the premium at full price and we continue to feed the snail. Another thing that I wish would happen to help ease the grind is having chaff and G-suits standard with the damn planes. The whole modification system is outdated, and I know it's never going to get removed, but walling the G-suit and chaff behind it is not cool. If I was to grind another air tree, I'm 100% going to use a premium account and the premium plane combo. It's not even comparable how much research this combo gives compared to not having one or the other or both. My heart goes out for all the free-to-play players who somehow suffer through all of this to get to top tier. They're built different, I guess. The grind through the tiers wouldn't be as fun if it wasn't for the constant change in weaponry, aircraft design philosophy, and tactics. When I made the jump from props to early jets, I had to use the knowledge about dogfighting that I learned from props and apply them to higher speed fights. how to utilize my air brakes, throttle, flaps. It all made for a thrilling learning experience when flying both the Sabre and the MiG-15 BIS. Then jumping from subsonic to supersonic, getting introduced to the early missiles like the AIM-9Bs and the AIM-7s. I swore up and down when I first encountered these missiles that they could not be countered, until I was just told to stop head-onning people and roll the damn missile. Getting into the F4F at 11.0 and learning about multipathing and notching, the first game that I successfully multipathed was just a hit of dopamine. That hit was nowhere near as big as when I notched a Phantom II that was using his Sparrow and closed the gap in my F4F and pulled it into a dogfight and won. I was on top of the world after that play. Getting into the MiG-23, learning about BVR, also was incredibly rewarding, and once I pulled it off, it's now one of my favorite things to do in both the MiG-23 and the MiG-29. It's always super fun to get into a technical fight with another aircraft at 8,000 meters, using both of our missiles, defeating each other's missiles, closing the distance, getting into a dogfight. This is what I live for. It's too bad that most of these fights get interrupted, or they never develop to this point, because I oopsied and left the notch window and eat an R-27ER to the face. I'm sure if I stick with the Eurofighter, I can find the joy of top tier, or maybe I won't. Maybe top tier is just a desolate hellscape, like everyone's been saying. But one thing is for certain, I adore this shitty, microtransaction-ridden, god-forsaken grind fest of a game, and the sunk cost fallacy is in full swing. I am currently suffering from Stockholm Syndrome, and I have fed the snail, and it won't leave my house. If you can hear this, please send help.